Welcome to Books, Booze, and Murder. I'm Anna.
I'm Alexa.
We're two friends who love to read and have a fascination with true crime. And we are officially in September.
Yeah.
It's the start of our happy season.
Mm-hmm. Welcome to spooky season.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I'm so happy. I've been technically decorating since I want to say August.
I know.
But I got some more decorations the other day.
Of course you did.
I'm not mad about it.
Nope.
So we might be a little bit chaotic today because we have the dogs here.
All three of them.
All three. So if you hear the most vocal one, that's probably my female dog, Nala. And I've told her to shut her trap.
Multiple times already.
And to not start.
It's just I need attention.
Yep.
Like now, please.
Yep.
Oh, my sister's getting attention. I need attention too.
Yep. So that's Coda saying hi to you. And your dog's like, I'm just minding my own business.
He's chewing on a toy. He's fine. He's occupied.
Yours is the angel. Mine's are demons.
We're only in week 3 of having him. We're still in the honeymoon period right now. Yeah, you are. We'll see. Yeah, right?
I feel like he's just been around forever anyway.
Yes, me too. Me too. But then I remember, I only got him right before school and I'm only 2 weeks into school.
Yeah.
What teachers are exhausted from school? Me.
Yeah. I come over and she goes, I'm not sick. I've just lost my voice. And it's between coaching and teaching. And I'm like, oh no.
Oh, God.
Because you said that there was a lot of boy energy in your class this year, right?
I have some really high energy boys this year. My girls are going to be my saving grace.
You're just like, it's only September.
We're only 2 weeks into September.
Yeah.
And I have full weeks up until next Friday. And then next Friday is a half day. But for the kids, not for me. Hilarious, right?
So how have you been words? Hi. That's been the theme of me today, apparently. How have you been besides that?
Other than permanently exhausted and permanently busy? Is there room for another emotion?
Probably.
There's no more room for anything else other than I'm tired and I'm busy.
Yeah.
And I have a new dog and I'm teaching a new grade level.
Yeah.
That's about all I got.
Yeah. No, that's a lot, for sure. That's a lot. Yeah. And actually, it's been handy because I've been able to come over here, let him out, and let my 2 dogs run around with him. And I'm like, yes, burn all the energy.
Please,
say goodbye.
Please, for all that is good and holy.
And then it was funny because one day this last week, I was here for a matter of maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and your husband pulls in, and I'm like, did I get my days wrong? And he's like, no, I just came home early. But I'm really happy you're here.
Uh-huh.
My dog's been able to pee.
Yeah.
So what books, I mean, obviously with life getting busy again, our rapid level of speed has not been the same. But what have you been reading lately?
So, of course, I'm still in the middle of reading or listening to reading The Covenant of Water. That is such a long book. Mm-hmm. I'm remembering a lot of it. I feel like I'm not getting as much out of it as some people have. Mm-hmm. I almost feel like I need to, that needs to be my summer project or a break project where I need to take whatever time and I need to actually physically read that one. Yeah. I need to get that physical copy of that giant book and just sit and read it for however long it takes me. Because it's a 30-hour listen.
Oh my God.
Right? So I'm in the middle of listening to that. I just finished reading Credence by Penelope Douglas. And, everyone has been raving about that. And I'm like, I can see the hype. I can see the rave. There's something about it where I was just like, I don't know how I feel about this book. Mm-hmm. It's good. Don't get me wrong. It's good. It was just gave me a little bit of a cringe factor at points. I was like,
yeah.
Was that intended? Hi.
Oh, the male dog saying, hi, give me attention. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting.
And we're going to be covering this book in January, so I'm not going to talk too much about it.
True. Yeah. We'll talk more about it then.
Yes.
I still have to read the October book.
Yes. It's fine.
Oh, man. Do you think that book that's 30 hours long, you'll actually like pause on it for now and read the actual hardcover?
I think I want to try and finish actually reading it or listening to it. And then maybe later on I will actually get the physical copy of that book. Mm-hmm. But I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
I just can't stop in the middle of something and just keep going.
Yeah, true. That part's hard.
Stop.
Yeah. No, I probably would be on the same page. The only book I've ever been able to like not finish because I was like, I'm done was The Lovely Bones. Or Lonely Bones. Yeah, Lovely Bones.
Yeah, The Lovely Bones.
Yeah, I was like, I'm like, I'm getting depressed. I can't do this. I legit can't. So that's the only book I DNF'd. But yeah, I've been reading The Serpent and the Wings of Night, which has been going crazy. And I'm reading it for another book club. And it's been interesting that, like I've told you, like it's kind of like The Hunger Games, but with vampires. And it's like, just the way it's written is really fascinating, but it is in the fantasy genre. So I don't know if I necessarily would have picked this up on my own because that's, like, unless like people are raving about it, saying you need to read it, I'm probably not going to.
Okay.
Like the ACOTAR books. Like for me, it took multiple people to say, no, just try it out. Like don't go for these other books written by the same author, but try these 5 books. And that I know we've both been able to read. And then I read People We Meet on Vacation.
Yes, of course.
That one, I don't know if this stuff had so much going on, but it wasn't like a top level book for me.
I liked the way it was written. I really liked how it followed those 2 people all the way through and each really cool vacation that they went on and why they went on all those vacations together, not as a couple. And then I don't know. I think I'm more of I like the way things are written as opposed to like, of course, I like the story and the plot line, but the way it's written has a huge impact for me too.
Yeah, I think I was just getting so fed up with like the insecurities that they had, and I was like,
"Oh yeah,
have a little goddamn confidence."
Oh yeah, that's a real thing. It's a real life thing. I get it. I understand.
So that part was hard, but yeah. So with it being the start of spooky season, I wanted to surprise you, and we'll post this to the gram after.
Oh God.
But I might have made you a boo basket.
A boo basket?
Yep. So I have 2 baskets in front of us right now, covered in a blanket, and we're gonna lift up.
Oh my goodness! Ah! My goodness, I'm gonna fall. This is great. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. These are so freaking good. Ah! Ah! Ah!
So, okay. So, actually...
Okay. I was about to say...
All right.
Start explaining.
Okay. So, do you know what a boo basket is and what's entailed?
No.
Okay. So, it's Halloween fall themed.
Okay. Of course.
Your standard is something like a blanket.
Yep.
The next thing is a pillow.
Yep.
The next thing is something to snack on.
Okay.
And then something to drink out of.
Yep.
And then self-care stuff.
Okay.
And I might have gone a little extra with you and just tossed a little extra items in there. Because I was like, ooh, this would be perfect for her classroom, but this would be perfect for this, and this would be perfect for
Oh, good Lord.
Yep.
Oh, geez.
Yep. So,
all right.
So we're going to start off. I have in mind dark chocolate covered walnuts, and
I have milk chocolate sea salt caramel pecan clusters. Oh, they're so good. Yummy.
So my husband tried those and he was like, Okay. Next in here, I don't know. Let's see. Oh, we're going to do this one next. Okay. Next. Yep. So this one wasn't exactly in there, but I saw this and I was like, we need it. So it's Witch's Brew Margarita.
Ooh.
So essentially what you do is you
changes color after.
So there are these glass containers filled with, well, there's the dog. So it's filled with a bunch of stuff, and there's a filter on the outside. So you fill the entire bottle with tequila of your choice. You let it infuse for a minimum of 3 to 5 hours, and it changes color after infusion. And then you strain a generous amount of the infused drink into a glass with crushed ice. Enjoy on its own or add a splash of soda.
Oh. So the ingredients, as I'm reading them, this is a berry flavored margarita. Sugar, dried lemon slice, dried strawberry, dried raspberry flavor. Red 40. Yes. Blue 1. Yes. Oh my goodness. This looks so freaking good though. Mm-hmm. Oh. Okay. You don't go overboard or anything.
I have a problem.
Yes. Okay. We're on the same page there.
So next up we have soap. And it's spooky season pumpkin spice hand soap. But what got me was there's Hocus Pocus written on the side.
Yes. Oh, that's very nice. I do like that. That's very, very nice.
Okay. And then you have Ghirardelli. Wait on that for just a second because you're going to lose your shit over that. Okay, so you have Ghirardelli chocolates.
All the Ghirardelli chocolates. Holy smokes. Like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait, I'm not done. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11,
it's an entire bag,
12, 13, 14 Ghirardelli chocolates. Every single one of them is freaking amazing. So I'm going to get fat. Thank you.
You are not. Shut up.
I said I'm going to.
Okay. So then you have clips. So
we love the hair clips.
There are clips. 2 of them are wired, like a basic wired clip that's black and orange. And then there's a third sparkly clip with pumpkins on it.
Love it.
So I was like, yep, we clip our hair up enough.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And then you have a box right there that's little pink.
Little itty bitty box. Yep.
I have one that's black. Okay. So these, we can open them up.
Okay. Oh, these are cute. Oh, my gosh.
Okay, so these are earrings.
Yes, of course.
I got them. I'm going to explain a little bit more, but I'm going to do a preliminary information. I got these in Plattsburgh near us. I just triangled us a little bit. Oops. I got them at a local business. They're 3D printed.
Very cool.
And then they're hand painted.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a lot of patience.
Oh, there's a bunch of them. And I was
Holy smokes.
I was not planning on using these in these boxes. Or in these baskets at all.
Okay.
And then I went to pick up our next item that we're going to open, and I was like, ooh. Okay.
Oh, God.
So, the next one we're going to do, there's 2 of them.
There's 2 of them.
Yep.
Should I get out both of them?
Yep. They're the same thing.
They're the same thing. Okay. So, they're obviously mugs. Oh! That's so fun!
Okay. So.
Oh!
We're going to post a separate picture of just these on Instagram.
Oh, these are so fun.
So these, what we just opened up, are pumpkin mugs that were handmade by a woman who I went to grade school with. And so I'm pretty sure she'll do online shipping if people inquire about it, but it's called Sad Radish Pottery.
That's adorable.
Yeah. The one thing I forgot to ask her was dishwasher and microwavable safe, and I keep meaning to text her, and I keep forgetting. So essentially, we have 1 mug in orange, 1 mug in black, and then the handles are actually the vine of the pumpkin.
It's so cool!
And I essentially had them custom made for us because normally she puts little pumpkin seeds on the outside, and I was like, I'm just not feeling the pumpkin seeds. So
okay, well, how nice of that then?
Yeah.
Wow.
So when I went to go pick up the mugs, that's when I saw the earrings. And I was like, I need to. And it's basically the business that they're all at. Artists come together and they sell their stuff in the store. So
very
it's
cool.
A bunch of stuff. Okay. And then we have the pillow. Yours has a saying on it.
This is where the magic happens. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And then mine
like
has
that.
Cobwebs.
Double-sided cobwebs.
Yep.
Good choice.
Okay. And then we have bars of like pumpkin spice soap because they're extra.
Ah, it smells so good.
And then you have
I have a cute little jack-o'-lantern jar. That's so cute.
So I figured you could put all your sweets in there.
Sweets that
school.
Sweets that my heathens won't see.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's your candy jar at school.
Although, yeah, no touchy. It's a no touchy jar.
And then the blankets.
Of course, same blankets. We love these.
Yep. So they're soft blankets that have the skulls, like
the sugar skulls.
Yes, the sugar skulls, the cobwebs, and some floral stuff on it. You know,
the Dios de los Muertos.
Yes. Yep.
That one.
Yep. So I had been looking in like Marshalls and Home Goods and TJ Maxx, and I was like, I'm honestly not feeling any of the fall blankets this year that I've seen. A lot of them are like peanuts. There's one that's the Hocus Pocus blanket I already have.
Right.
There's some that the textures are kind of weird, and this has been like the only one that I've been like, I could get down with that.
Yeah. nice and soft.
So that's our boo basket.
Oh, you're way too good to me. Like, seriously, have I ever told you that? Because you're way too good to me.
Yes, you have.
Okay, glad we're on the same page there, because stop it! God.
But yeah, I figured you would appreciate the homemade, supporting a local business with the mugs part. So
mugs, the earrings, yeah.
Yep. So that's our little extra bit for fall.
I love the extraness. Really, truly, I do. It's always nice to be a little bit extra every now and then.
Yeah. And my mom's going to listen to this and she goes, stop being over the top. And I'm going to be like, never.
No, mommy.
This is my love language.
I know. You are very good at this as your love language.
So these make me so happy.
Those make me so happy.
I saw them on her social media last year right after she stopped making them because it was like November. And I was like,
I need them now, please.
Next year. And for the record, I got rid of some of my mugs to account for these.
Okay.
Because she also has some other fall ones that I really like, and I like some of her winter ones. So,
so we need space for all of the mugs.
Yep. So we're on a high.
Yes.
And
I love it.
And we're going to continue that high with that drink. So I did see that you posted to socials about the drink, but I purposely didn't read it at all. So what are we drinking? What's in it? How do you make it? I need the rundown.
Okay. So this, of course, I feel like we decided last minute to record. So at about 7 o'clock this morning, I was like, Tennessee drinks. So this is Tennessee tea. It sounds like it's a mix between a whiskey sour and a Jack and Coke.
Oh.
So it is... I did not make my own simple syrup. I just used maple syrup because that's way better than simple syrup anyways. This is 2 ounces of Jack Daniels, 1 ounce of triple sec, a half ounce of lemon juice, a half ounce of simple syrup, and 1 ounce of cola.
Ooh.
You put it all in a shaker. You shake it all up, and we can sip. So, cheers.
Cheers. That tastes like I'm going to be stumbling over my words during
I was about to say, Jack Daniels does something to me where I haven't had Jack Daniels in a long time. Mm-hmm. This is very nice. Yeah. Because, of course, this is my first tasting of it as well. Because I decided at 7 o'clock this morning before I went to church. Thank you, Lord. That we were doing this one.
Yeah, I was wondering what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. So, cool. Good job.
Some days I can figure my shit out. Some days I can't. So, and speaking of which, let's see how long my voice is going to hold out for this.
That's all right.
Because, yikes. All right. So, the book that we read this month was Before We Were Yours by Lisa Wingate. This is based on true events that happened in the late 1930s. This is a historical fiction that rings truth. We follow the current day story of Avery Stafford, who is in perfect place to take her father's Senate seat while she is planning a fabulous, politically advantageous wedding. But in the midst of this, we know that her father, the current senator for South Carolina, is battling cancer and doesn't know if he will be able to run for another full seat. He also has a mother in a nursing home who has dementia, but part of his platform for running is advocating for elderly care in nursing homes. On one of their outings to a nursing home, Avery and her father run into an older woman in the home named May Crandall. May is far from her home, her children, and is full of piss and vinegar. May steals a bracelet that Avery was wearing, and when Avery goes to retrieve it, she sees a picture of a woman that looks strangely like her grandmother. Avery has a hunch that something is up, so she starts digging into it. She finds out that her grandmother has an envelope waiting for her at a cabin by the ocean that Avery, I mistyped something there, but Avery goes to retrieve it from the very handsome real estate agent, Trent Turner. He will not give it up. Oh, when? That's what it's supposed to be. But when she goes to retrieve it, he's not going to give it up to her. Even after all the phone calls that Avery makes, it still takes her driving to the seaside cabin, staking out the real estate office, and calling while Trent is half asleep to get any answers out of him. It turns out Trent's grandfather was looking into reuniting families that had been separated during the scandal that surrounded the Tennessee Children's Home Society in the late 1930s. I'll explain that in a moment. It turns out the grandfather was at the home during this time and was taken from his birth parents and had been looking for and reuniting people ever since. Avery realizes that her grandmother was looking for her siblings that she thought had been taken from. Now let's jump to the next part of the story. We will follow Rill Foss, a.k.a. May Weathers, in 1939, and the oldest of 5 siblings, Camellia, Lark, Fern, and Gabion. At the beginning of their story, Queenie, the children's mother, is giving birth to twins on their riverboat on the Mississippi. They are river folk who will survive on their boat and sometimes go to school if they are tied up close enough to a town. When their mother has to be taken to the hospital to have her babies, their father gets her in the skiff and takes off. Rill knows her parents wouldn't leave them. In the following days, people come creeping around the boat and abduct the children, promising to take them to see their mother in the hospital. Rill desperately wants to keep her siblings together, so she does as the woman, Georgia Tann, asks. Her sister Camellia, the black sheep of the family, the only one with dark hair and dark eyes and a fiery personality that won't take shit from anyone. When the TCHS takes them in, gives them new names, and starts adopting them out, which children are more likely to get adopted? The ones with pretty blonde curly hair and blue eyes, or the ones with dark hair and eyes that can't cooperate? You guessed it. The first choice. Now mind you, Rill/May is maybe 11 or 12. Camellia might be 8 or 9, and the others are even younger, with the baby Gabion being only 2. While in the home, we hear of the worst atrocities and the bullshit that gets swept under the rug, and the people that were given, quote unquote, children as payment for their services. We discover that Trent's grandfather is one of those children that was gifted to a sheriff in the area, and when he found out, he ran away and never talked to his adopted parents again, and spent the rest of his life looking for his older sister and reuniting other families that were torn apart. But back to Rill. We hear about the viewing parties for wealthy families to play with younger children that are available for adoption, and the lack of supervision in the house, and the horrible people that work there that beat the kids, drink on the job, and abuse them when no one is watching. And if they get too old / phase out or cause too much trouble, like Camellia, they disappear. Rill/May watches as each of her siblings are taken and adopted out to someone while she fights furiously to return back to their home on the shanty boat with Queenie and Bryony. Now, some of these people that adopt from TCHS can't have children, like many women nowadays. The couple that ends up adopting Rill, May, and her sister Fern are one of those couples that have tried and failed to conceive a child or carry it to term. Many times, these women are not advised to continue trying because it could put their health in danger. During their stay, Georgia Tann returns and demands more money to cover legal fees to protect the adoption of the girls. Let's be real, it's blackmail. Rill is able to sneak out of the house with Fern and return to the shanty boat with the help of her friend Arnie. Rill believes that getting back will solve all their problems, but it doesn't. They get back and realize Queenie died from blood poisoning shortly after leaving the hospital, being told that her babies she was carrying were dead and all of her children were taken. Bryony took to the bottle, and then some after the kids were taken and after the passing of Queenie. Life is not like it was. Rill and Fern are in a worse situation when Bryony will not take the boat downriver to warmer water, but in a drunken stupor cuts them loose in the middle of the night, which is extremely dangerous, and ends up dying. Rill is able to save herself and her sister and resigns to bringing Fern back to her adopted parents, thinking they would not want her anymore after what she did. But she was wrong, as she was welcomed back with open arms, and then they are moved down to Georgia, where Georgia Tann cannot find them. Now, how does this relate to Avery? You can probably guess that May Crandall is Avery's grandmother's sister, but she is not Fern, Lark, or Camellia. Grandma Judy was the baby that Queenie thought she lost, along with her brother, but they were actually taken right from the hospital and adopted as new infants to another wealthy family that could not have children. Trent Sr. was able to find Fern, Lark, Rill, and Judy and reunite them in what they called Sisters Week for many years. We never knew what happened to Judy's twin, or Gabion, or Camellia, but we do know that Avery decided to dive deeper and use her law degree to help senior citizens. She did not marry her fiancé, and May and Judy now reside in the same nursing home so they can have sister time all the time. Oh, I just got goosebumps from that. Oh,
So this is one where straight up I was sobbing at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my husband was asleep in bed and I was sobbing, like trying to keep it together, and he goes, "Are you okay?" And I go, "It's the book.
I'm not okay."
Oh my gosh. This was so well written.
Yes.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh. I think Camellia was probably murdered.
Oh, yeah. Gotten rid of.
Yeah.
She was probably buried in a shallow grave out in the back.
Yeah. And honestly, like, with the way that she was treated, like, sexual abuse by the hands of that male guy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, this book gave me the feels of, like, everything's well in the world with Avery and, like, living her life. And then being so angry. Like, there were times where I was so angry with what was happening with Rill and her siblings. And then I'd go back to Avery's time and I was like, okay, I can breathe.
Right? It's like, it almost gives you that, like, that breath of fresh air where it's like, she's going to figure it out. She's going to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, like, I didn't even dive into Trent Jr. and his son and their story. Because, of course, yes, Avery finds Trent the very love and with his son, and so good, so cute. All of it's cute.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that story, as we know at this point, is he slept with a woman who was married, right? Yes. And then he didn't even realize that she'd had a baby, and then he was like, okay, well, I'm going to take this kid in, but unfortunately, because she died in a car accident.
Yeah, she died in a car accident, and then her husband didn't want the child. Yeah. Because it's not his child. Yeah. I'm like, that's garbage, but okay. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. No, I really loved that, and her realization that the guy that she was going to marry was not the best person for her.
Right. It was the expected marriage. Yeah. It's like, nope, don't do that. Yeah. Don't do that to yourself.
And then, like, it definitely took me a while to put together the Grandma Judy and May. It took me a while to piece that together.
Oh, yeah.
But then it was the last few pages. I was like, wait a second. So she's not any of these girls? Who was it? Wait, what? Huh? And so that's why I had to keep reading. And when I found out what happened, I was like, oh my God.
Are you growling, sir?
Yep. One of the female dog's like, I want to play. And your dog's like, no, let me be.
I'm old and I'm tired now.
Yes. Oh, hi.
Oh, hi. Yes. Thank you. But yeah, it's like, it took me reading it a second time through to realize the woman at the very beginning that they're talking about. Hey! Knock it off.
No.
Was the one who was being smuggled, the small child that is Grandma Judy. I was like, what?
Like, I think I got that at the very end because I really had to think about it, and then I was like, oh my gosh. And like,
and the fact that this is real.
Oh,
this is a real thing.
It's about to get real up in here. But no, and then the fact that when the girls were placed in the home, there were I don't want to say servants, but like there was the people of color who were helping at the house, who didn't like the girls because they thought that they were white trash. And then like when they came back, they were accepted again. The fact that it was the daughter who was their age, that was the one that had been maintaining the property in her family, I was like,
and she was the one who told us the entire truth at the very end. Like, oh, yeah, you know nothing. It's like, and they were friends for forever after that.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Well, yeah. So like we met her. She said the story, and it's just like, okay, there's some sort of connection. And then it was like the grandmother or whatever was like, oh, that's Hootie. And I was like, yeah. No, this was so beautifully written. I do remember Rill had like a boyfriend very briefly, and he was taken away.
Yeah.
I really want to know what happened to him. Like, he probably got killed because he was doing all that. Or maybe he got adopted out. They said he got adopted out, but you can't trust a lot of these workers.
I was going to say, I call bullshit on that. I don't think he was adopted out. I think he was probably one of those kids where he aged out, because they even said as soon as you start thinking you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, that means you're too old for the children's home. True. So I think they sent him to work in one of those factories, because that was still when correct me if I'm wrong, that was still when children were working in factories for the nimble fingers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think he was sent to one of those places.
I would prefer that outcome.
You think so? I mean, as opposed to being killed, yes, I can see that.
No, I think that part does make sense because they no longer have to provide for him and he has to learn hard labor.
Right.
So.
Right. It's like, you're a man now. Bye.
Yeah. And like, that realization that Rill had that things were never going to be the same when they got back to the boat. Oh. And then.
That was tragic.
Oh my gosh. And then I'm forgetting his name. The boy that was helping them out. The young boy.
Not Arnie, but the other one?
Yes.
Arnie and...
You're blanking on that too. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I adored him.
He was wonderful. Mm-hmm. He was so wonderful. And the fact that, like, he, like, loved Rill so much and did everything he could to try and help her.
Yeah.
And even went and it was like, they need help.
Yeah.
We need to go find them. They need help.
Yeah.
And the fact that Bryony came and looked for them and they wouldn't give him up.
Yes.
And with that other guy that came at that one point.
Yeah,
it was just crying and broken down. Yeah. And it was like, wait, but no, I need to just drop him off for a little while. I'm back on my feet now. I can take my kid back.
And they're like, nope.
Nope, we adopted him out. Too bad. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And like with Avery taking the initiative to find out the family secret, like as someone who was adopted at birth, mm-hmm. like I understand the desire to like know where you come from, mm-hmm. know what those dynamics are. So like I could relate to a lot of that. Mm-hmm. I was like, ugh. And then like the family home and going through that. And the taxi driver sitting at the grandmother's house.
Yes. That was, taxi driver comes every Thursday. Every Thursday, every week, has a flat rate. You're going to bring me here and take me home. Nobody knew about it.
Yeah. And she, like, paid for quite a while. So the kid
just came and kept sitting there. Because it's like, it's already paid for. Just sit and wait. They never would have found out if Avery had not gone by her Grandma Judy's place on a Thursday when that taxi driver came. Wild.
Yeah.
Holy
smokes.
Two
sisters coming together. I was like,
mm-hmm.
And then at the very end, you did mention like the two sisters were together in the same nursing home. I was like, that's the way it's meant to be.
That is the way it should be.
Oh, this was such a good one.
It was so good.
So good.
I love this book. I think I raved about it a lot on Instagram when I finished it the first time. But like, mm-hmm. I love this type of historical fiction where it just,
Well, I'm really glad that you picked it because I don't know if I ever would have picked it up.
Right?
Yeah.
Anywho.
Right. You're ready to...
Let's dive deeper into Miss Georgia Tann.
Yeah.
This is the first time that we've actually done a historical fiction based on a real person and then done the crime of that real person.
Well, she's a terrible human being.
She's a horrible, awful... Can I say the C word?
Yep.
Cunt. She's a cunt.
We don't use that word lightly.
No, I don't.
Some of the things that I learned in this research is worse than what's in the book.
Well, shit.
And like, I read the author's note, and a lot of her research was done by interviewing survivors. And yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, this is bad. But at the same time, like, okay, so... Before reading this month's book, I had never heard of the Tennessee Children's Home Society. Had you ever heard of it? Okay. So, like, the fact that you picked it, I think, is so informative because people need to know this story. I felt like it was my responsibility to cover this in particular and what exactly Georgia Tann and her staff did. And it definitely wasn't the easiest, but I'm thinking of all the children that had to experience all of that, and mm-hmm. I owe it to them. So I'm doing this for those children mm-hmm. that experienced
mm-hmm.
that. And even if I don't name each and every one of them, I'm thinking of each and every one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a ton of information about the home in Georgia Tann. So I'm sure I probably missed something along the way.
It's a lot of info there.
Oh my God. You have no I want to do a massive shout out to the podcast Southern Fried True Crime. The episode that they did this was back in 2020 when we're in the midst of shelter in place.
Right.
As that podcast led me down the path to a lot of the sources that I use.
Okay.
And I thought their podcast episode was really well done. So shout out to them if they ever hear this. And overall, my sources include an article from the Tennessee State Library and Archives, an article from the Hastings Women's Law Journal by Hannah Noel Walensky titled Black Market Adoptions in Tennessee, A Call for Reparations. And it was brilliantly written. Like a lot of my stuff. Oh my gosh.
Awesome.
And many newspaper clippings. And this is definitely a case where most of the information is available in newspaper clippings, newspapers.com. Mm-hmm. But you need a subscription, and we're not sponsored yet, so I'm not investing in that yet.
I'm not there yet.
No. So that's why I'm just saying, like, this is where I got my information from. Someday we'll get there.
Awesome.
So I do have this broken up into the orphanage, Georgia Tann, adoptions, money, business and legal influence, and connections, crime, the downfall. There was so much information. I literally had to organize it by topic.
Wow.
This was a doozy.
No shit.
The orphanage. So the Tennessee Children's Home Society was first and foremost a chain of orphanages that operated in the state of Tennessee during the first half of the 1900s. We established that.
Yep.
It began as a nonprofit corporation in 1897 and was the oldest child placing agency in the state, obviously before it was shut down.
Right.
With its main office located in Nashville until 1913.
Okay.
It was during that year the Secretary of State granted a second charter to the agency and sent agents to different parts of the state to establish branch offices.
Okay.
So it wasn't just Memphis. This is the one we're focusing on now. But it was Memphis, Knoxville, Chattanooga, and Jackson. And obviously, yeah.
Oh no.
So I'm not covering all those other locations. That would be like...
That's a 4-hour podcast.
And I'm not doing that.
Just all by yourself.
So we're focusing, needless to say, on the Memphis location.
Okay. But
I wanted a little bit of background. There wasn't much, but that's what I was able to find. So, Georgia Tann, this bitch. Bola, I don't even know if I'm saying it right. I don't give a fuck. Bola Georgia Tann. That's her full name.
Okay.
She was born on July 18th, 1891 in Philadelphia, Mississippi.
Okay.
To Beulah and Judge George Tann.
Yep.
And then, as we can guess, in her later years, she went by Georgia.
Right.
I struggled to find information about her childhood, but my research brought up a good point. Authors have written books about this topic after the crimes had been done, and whenever they tried to approach the neighbors in her area wouldn't really talk to them, or they'd say, "Here's my gun. You want to talk to me now?" So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they were not trying to get any information is just not there.
Right.
But what we do know is this: Judge George Tann was not a liked man, but he was respected. So it was like, hate the guy, we're going to leave him alone. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. He was seen as arrogant, combative, domineering, and a womanizer. And he was emotionally cold towards children, but he somehow did have a strong interest in the well-being of orphans. Mm-hmm. So it's like, go figure. Sense the parallels?
Yep.
Well, hi, dogs. How are you? I wasn't really able to find a whole lot of information on her mom.
Luke, relax.
The dogs are fine. My female dog just wants to play, and he's like, I have my toy, leave me alone.
I was about to say, she's in total play stance.
Yep. So, but there is a fun fact. She did have a brother who was adopted, and his name was Roy. So, I don't have any other information besides that.
Interesting, though.
So, in 1913, Georgia graduated from Martha Washington College, and a year later, she taught music at Hickory High School in Mississippi. Between 1915 and 1918, she jumped around to different jobs. Red flag, right?
Yes. Usually that's kind of sketchy when you jump between jobs quite often.
Yep. So in June of 1918, she brought home a woman named Anne Atwood. And Anne wasn't just a friend, they were girlfriends.
That's very controversial for that time period.
Exactly.
Okay.
So again, not a big deal as of our recording in 2024, but remember, this is the South in the early 1900s.
That's very, very controversial.
Yep. So being a lesbian was not accepted. So everything that they did was obviously hush-hush. So arguably, all the stereotypical signs were there. And I'm really leaning hard into the word of stereotypical. Mm-hmm. So Georgia was known to wear flannel shirts and pants, wore her hair in a tight bun, and showed no interest whatsoever in getting married.
So she had very little feminine attributes.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. No, this description is from my research. It's not me.
Right.
I wear flannel shirts. We both wear flannel shirts when it gets colder, and pants, and I wear my hair up. We're both wearing our hair up. So, obviously we're not being judgmental, but
never.
Georgia met Anne at one of her teaching jobs, and they obviously spent a lot of time together. And like many lesbians at this time, they'd refer to each other, did you know this, as sister.
I did not know that.
I didn't know that either.
Interesting.
And obviously they lived together as quote-unquote roommates.
Uh-huh.
Georgia did eventually leave the teaching sector and followed her father's interest into social work to work with children. During this time, she had been working at the Mississippi branch of the Children's Home Society, but was asked to leave because of her placing methods. Now, why this wasn't stopped before, I don't know.
Because this is the early 1900s and they don't keep those records.
Oh,
they don't transfer those records to...
Yep. She formally resigned after she was asked to leave and moved to Texas to work at another branch for almost a year. After, she moved to New Orleans to work in a juvenile court. It was in New Orleans that she adopted a daughter named June. And I'm not really going to go into June at all. Like, I wasn't able to find much about her. I'm focusing on Georgia.
But she adopted a child.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Within the year, she was living full-time with June and Anne. And it wasn't clear to me if Anne moved with her each time or if they were geographically separated for a bit.
Okay.
And after June's adoption, Anne became pregnant and had a son named Jack.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So it is speculated that Anne was bisexual, but I think getting pregnant to keep suspicions away for being a lesbian is also another theory.
Okay. Yep.
So
I can see that.
Yeah. After all of this was said and done, slightly over 100 years ago as of the time of this recording in 2024, all four of them had moved to Memphis, where Georgia could work for the local branch of the Children's Home Society.
Which is where our story starts.
Yep, and this would be her, obviously, last stop.
Right.
So by 1925, Georgia was the head honcho. She was still with Anne, but Anne was now called Mrs. Jack Hollingsworth.
Okay.
Yep. It said she changed her name to match her son's name, so Jack, to match his father's name, so it would look like she'd been married, even though that wasn't so.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I wouldn't, and knowing what Georgia was able to do, I wouldn't be shocked if Georgia was able to help her forge some papers to make that happen. And then later on, she changed her last name from Hollingsworth, and she dropped the G's to Hollinsworth.
Oh.
And the next part was really fascinating to me. When Anne was in her 40s, Georgia legally adopted her.
When Anne was in her 40s, she adopted her girlfriend.
Yep. Well, no, Georgia adopted Anne. When Anne was in her 40s, Georgia adopted her.
Yeah, isn't Anne her
girlfriend?
Yeah, Anne's her girlfriend.
Yeah.
Okay, I am hearing that right.
Because yeah. And it was to ensure that Anne would become her heir.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah. Georgia's documents said that Georgia raised her and that it was only right that Anne get everything that was Georgia's.
Oh.
Yeah. So I really do understand the desire to that, like, what a partner gives to theirs, like, that's what they want to have. So I get that. But I'd never heard of an adult adopting another adult before.
No.
Yeah.
I was about to say, it doesn't make sense to legally adopt anyone over 18 because they are an adult.
Yeah. So apparently that was the only way they could make that happen.
I was going to say, but I guess that makes sense because they couldn't legally get married. So that's the way to bind them.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
Very interesting. Yeah. Very, very resourceful.
Yes. So no, Anne was 8 years younger than Georgia.
Uh-huh.
So I'm like, wow, she's awfully young, Mom.
Uh-huh. That's fine. Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, Georgia was head honcho. Well, hi there, dude. Hi, Luke. How are you? So Georgia was the head honcho, but Anne was not an employee of Georgia's. Anne was the secretary for the local Boy Scouts chapter, which is another problematic organization, but we're not focused on them today. Unofficially, she did write George's letters and help transport children around to be adopted. So Anne, honestly, I don't think there's as much blood on her hands, but there's some blood on her hands. Okay, adoptions. We're about... Hi, Luke.
Luke, zip it. You're being a jackwagon.
They're like, you have a...
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Yep, that's what it is.
Pardon.
Okay, so adoptions. So, history lesson, but it's vital to understand how Georgia got away with everything that she did. In the late 1800s, Memphis was a hot mess, which made it a hot spot for illegal activity. In 1878, yellow fever made its rounds and killed 5,000 of the city's 40,000 residents. So...
Oh.
Yep. Many of the city's professionals, businessmen, and political leaders essentially said, fuck this, I'm out.
Good choice.
Yep. And as a result, the city was living in poverty. With political leadership in limbo, corrupt politicians flooded through the gates, and they were more than happy to accept bribes and ignore illegal activities.
Uh-huh.
And by 1909, Edward, or Boss Crump, like that just sounds like straight out of a fucking, I don't know.
That sounds like a gangster name.
It sounds like a gangster name, but it also reminds me of like a made up like children's movie bad guy.
Yes.
Which he is a bad guy.
Yes.
So that makes sense. So Edward Boss Crump, and he became mayor, and he was just a bad dude.
Mm-hmm.
He extorted money from brothels, saloons, and gambling clubs, and would collect as much as $80,000, which is over $1 million today.
That's a lot of money back then.
Yep. So in 2024 money, that's over $1 million.
Wow.
From these businesses in exchange for protection from prosecution and police harassment.
Wow.
Needless to say, he was feared and had a significant amount of influence over law enforcement, judges, and state legislators.
Mm-hmm.
We know Georgia was an awful person, so it's no surprise to learn that she got along quite well with this asshole.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll come back to him in a little bit.
Okay.
In addition to this political alliance, between 1850 and 1915, the annual birth rate for white Americans dropped nearly 40%.
Wow.
This shortage helped Georgia... My dogs are just playing with a toy. Just, oh my God.
It's fine. We're all saying hi right now.
Yeah, we're all saying hi. So this shortage helped Georgia sell the idea that every child, quote, was precious, even those born to unworthy parents.
Ooh. Ooh, there's the line.
Yeah, she can fuck right off.
Ooh. Ooh. Luke, zip it, Mr. Hound. Hey.
Quote, she argued that low-income parents were incapable of proper parenting.
Okay.
Yep. And she was going to take advantage of their economic status to make herself rich.
Mm-hmm.
And she was clearly great with marketing, as she was able to sell the idea that the children she was adopting out were, quote-unquote, blank slates. And the adoptive parents could quickly mold them into exactly what they wanted. Yeah, that's full of shit.
Yeah, when you're 2.
Yeah. So this was...
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. This was revolutionary with the exception of adoptive parents who wanted a slave to work their land or work in their homes. We can't forget the Great Depression and how many families were vulnerable to con artists like Georgia and her minions at this time, too. So it's just like she's just preying on the weak.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And this was mind-blowing. At this time, Georgia's process was not illegal, but it was morally and ethically complicated. Like, it's just, it just bad.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, we'll go with morally and ethically complicated.
Yeah. Ugh, I'm rolling my eyes really hard right now.
Yes, very much so.
One of Georgia's terrible adoption practices was to place children way too quickly. So this included the fact that most unwed mothers were very young and a prime target to those working in Georgia's ring. Mm-hmm. The deal would be that they'd put up their child for adoption and their medical finances would be taken care of. Kind of like what we saw in this book. Like that's what they were being promised in the hospitals.
Well, and I think part of what they were talking about in this book as well was they were asking moms to sign papers that were like, oh, these are your medical bills. You have to sign these now while they're under anesthesia. Exactly. And they're lying to them about what those bills are. Yep. Where it's like, nope, I am for giving over my rights to the Tennessee Children's Home Society. Like,
yeah. They didn't know what they were signing. Yeah. Yeah. So remaining money would go to whomever set up the transaction, which would be Georgia. Uh-huh. Other targets consisted of women receiving psychiatric care in a facility, and their child had a disease. No. Say, wrong paragraph. Hi, the booze is sinking in. In a facility, and those who were looking for help from welfare and maternity clinics. So the people were doing exactly what they were supposed to be doing. She just knew how to get her nose in there. Another problematic step was not taken to ensure if there was a good fit. So nor were there any investigations into the adoptive parent's background. Keep in mind, as I mentioned before, I was adopted at birth. This was done with my parents. Like, I have copies of documents where they had home checks, they had interviews, like, they did the whole shebang.
Oh, yeah. Nowadays, that's, like, it takes a longer time to get an adoption than it does a lot of other things now.
Oh, absolutely. The child's medical and heritage history were lost, a.k.a. there was no way... Yeah, exactly. Lost.
Quote, unquote, lost.
Yep. A.k.a. there was no way for parents to be able to tell if their child had a disease or if they were disabled ahead of time.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I think an easy question to ask is, why are all these parents using the black market where all of these risks are involved? Mm-hmm. The answer is that it was faster. Yep. An adoption done through the proper channels could take 6 to 12 months at this time. Mm-hmm. The entire process for me personally, I actually asked my parents about this. It was about a couple of years.
Wow.
Yeah. So this includes all the work through the attorneys, home checks, and meeting with more than one birth mom to find the match. Like, I think my birth mom was their third person that they met with.
Wow.
Yeah. Georgia's method at first was to do superficial investigations of homes and parents, and then she eventually cut them out. Mm-hmm. Let's talk money. I know you're going to be able to put this together and be like, what the fuck? In 1924, in-state adoptions were $7.
Yep.
That would be $129 today.
Okay.
Out-of-state were $750 in 2024.
Wow.
100 years later, you want to take a guess as to how much this would be?
No.
$13,795.
Oh. Wow.
And all of that money had to be given to the agency, but it said that Georgia would pocket between 90 to 95%.
Shocking. Wow.
And it wasn't unheard of for her to have adoptive parents make out checks in her name, not the home's.
Right.
The state also gave the home grant money each year. So this came out to $18,600 in 1924.
Oh.
That's $342,131.23 today.
Oh my gosh.
So putting this into perspective, this was how she got away with the theft for as long as she did. Mm-hmm. So it's grant money from the state and adoptions, and she was like, money, 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 give me all the money.
Wow.
So let's go into the business and legal influence a little bit. She was known for going to door, convincing local merchants that she was saving them tax dollars by getting the children adopted out.
Oh.
In the 1930s, she claimed to have saved $218,000 in 1930s money by arranging 2,000 adoptions.
Holy smokes.
She often traveled around giving speeches and distributing booklets about the home right outside of Tennessee, and even met with Eleanor Roosevelt at one point to discuss child welfare. Ironic, right?
Uh-huh.
President Truman personally invited her to his inauguration, as she was becoming known as the quote-unquote mother of adoption.
Oh.
Celebrities were getting in on the action as well. Joan Crawford was known for adopting her third and fourth children through Georgia. So all 4 of her children had been adopted.
Oh.
And that story is wild too, but that's for another day. But from what I know, like, Joan did not have the greatest relationship with her third and fourth children. So, like, she sent them away for, like, boarding school and stuff.
Oh. Interesting.
Yep. Mm-hmm. By 1935, she had a wait list in North and South America. Yes, I'm including Canada.
Wow.
And as we can imagine, that list was quite long and there were not enough children. So where does this lead us?
To where we are now.
Abduction.
Blech.
And I'll get into that a little bit later. Yep. So, you know how there's a whole thing about missing children on milk cartons?
Yeah.
Okay. So Georgia did something similar to this that drew in a lot of attention. Mm-hmm. She placed ads in newspapers of children up for adoption. The intended target was the wealthy.
Oh.
Each of the 400-ish ads she ran between 1929 and the early 1940s included names and captions of each child stating gender and how old they were.
Wow.
What's even more sickening is that around Christmas time, she'd choose the best-looking children, get them all dolled up, which sounds familiar from what we read, and then place the ads. And the draw was to bring home a baby for Christmas. And as we read in the book, blonde hair and blue-eyed children were her favorites, as they were usually the easiest to place.
So you're a Nazi, Georgia.
She's the worst. To go back to politics, at this time, there were very few regulations in place, which made it very easy for her to find loopholes that were already, like, just, She had the ability to lobby state legislators to put into place laws that were favorable to her. Her connections in the political world have been mentioned before, but this also expands to congressmen, state reps, and senators. And with that said, she had power over both state and federal levels. In 1947, she testified before the Tennessee legislature, stating that it was better for adoptive children to grow up away from their natural parent, as it would allow little to no interference from the parent.
Oh, she's a wonderful human. Wow.
The result was the legislation was the legalization of adoptions for out-of-state residents. This then led to the authorization of closed adoptions, where records about biological parents are kept sealed. Oh. And that's kind of what I had. I had a closed adoption.
Right.
As Georgia's supporters argued that they were trying to protect kids from being seen as illegitimate and that adoptive parents wouldn't have to worry about birth parents knocking on their door. Oh, yeah. And let's not forget the passing of laws in several states that are still present today. In the 1930s, the New York governor adopted 3 children from this home and then signed a number of bills that sealed birth certificates for adoptees in New York.
Oh.
And needless to say, she was an influencer in the world of adoption. So here are the connections that she had in, like, the higher up, and it's disgusting. As mentioned before, she was buddy-buddy with Mayor Crump. His practices had many in fear of him, including hospital nurses, physicians, juvenile court employees, and deputy sheriffs. If any of them denied Georgia's wishes about anything, she'd tell Crump about it. And as we also know from the book, she hired spotters. So, like, the people that found the kids on the boat. Yep. A hot spot for them was in maternity wards where they would alert Georgia when poor white women went into labor. There also were those who would go around the area looking for poor pregnant women and families. Older children would often be taken from their porches, playgrounds, or even when walking on the road, as they'd be told their parents had died or they couldn't take care of them anymore.
That's terrible.
These children would have their documents altered by judges and city workers. Changes were made to birth certificates to make the kids look younger. Their birth names were changed. Birth parents would also be changed. The whole thing. One example would be the occupations of the birth parents to make the child look more appealing to high-class families. Some adoptive parents were given false birth certificates, so there'd be absolutely no way for birth parents to track their children down.
Makes sense.
And though through her connections, she also had influence over doctors and lawyers in West Tennessee who would persuade unwed mothers to also give up their babies for medical care. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't just the Memphis area. It was all over.
Yep.
And oh yeah, she had a judge in her pocket.
Of course she did.
Judge Camille Kelly was a longtime juvenile court judge. She sped up the transfer of custody for Georgia, coercing families in court to give up their children to the state, and utilized her welfare system informant whenever they notified her that a baby had been born to a poor family.
Oh my God.
If a family being coerced to give up their child tried to protest this, she'd rule against them. When it came to parents struggling with illness, unemployment, or divorce, she terminated their parental rights. There was one instance where she threatened to have a dad prosecuted for incest if he didn't give up his daughter.
Wow.
She provided 1,000 of the 5,000 children that Georgia would eventually sell. Mm-hmm. And she wasn't... Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Like, wow. It's disgusting.
It's gross. That's so gross. Like, you're supposed to be an officer of the court for the people. That's disgusting. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Judge Kelly wasn't the only one involved in this mess.
Of course not.
Other judges would routinely go against birth parents, and when it came to attorneys, attorney Abe Waldauer, an attorney for the orphanage, wrote to Georgia in 1937 that a mom had sued to regain custody of her baby, and in his letter, he flaunted the fact that during his questioning of the mom, he reduced her to mincemeat and convinced her that she really was unworthy.
Oh. Wow.
All right, let's get to the crime.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Oh, God.
Here's where the death portion of true crime comes into place, and content warning, deaths of newborns and sexual abuse will be mentioned. Again, I'm literally doing this for the children because we need to know what the fuck happened.
Do you need another drink before we start this?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to make another drinks before we start this because, whoa.
Yep.
So you keep talking and I'll mix drinks over here.
So I'm going to keep talking. Alexa will be behind me. We'll probably still hear her reactions in the background.
Yeah.
Okay. Babies were stolen only hours after birth and then brought to nursing homes around the state. Some of them would pass away due to the lack of medical care. Yep. Doctors with at least an ounce of humanity would tell Georgia that she shouldn't take babies that weighed less than 5 pounds. But she did so anyway.
Of course she did.
And of course, these were often the ones who wouldn't survive. After birth, if a doctor prescribed certain medications or instructions for care, Georgia would ignore it all.
Of course she did.
Resulting in more deaths. Some doctors were so tight with Georgia that they'd have mothers, you mentioned this before, still under the influence of meds used during childbirth, sign over temporary custody documents so they could get medical treatment or would be told that their babies were stillborn.
Yeah, that's awful.
That's
terrible.
Yeah, and this happened to both mothers in Tennessee and out of state, so it's just disgusting.
Yep.
In 1945, dysentery, aka severe belly issues, made its way into the home. Almost 50 children died, and Georgia refused to separate the sick from the healthy.
Oh my God. That's bad.
It was so bad. It wasn't unheard of to have 5 to 6 babies in one crib at a time.
No!
So if one was sick...
They all got sick.
Yep. Children suffered physical and sexual abuse by employees. Punishment would entail being hung from coat racks, dangled down laundry chutes, beaten with switches. Don't ask me what a switch is or to elaborate.
I know what that is.
What is it?
A switch is just it's a twig or a stick, but it's bigger than a twig so that when they hit you with it, it doesn't break. But it stings like a whip.
Yes, they were beaten with those.
Yep.
And would only be allowed to eat bread and water for weeks.
Awesome.
So while this woman is rolling around in the dough,
yep,
these children are being abused up the wazoo.
Yep. Awesome.
Okay, so author Barbara Raymond interviewed hundreds of survivors who told her tales of abuse. In one tale, 2 sisters were abandoned by their mother and left with Georgia. They recounted being tied at the wrists by rope and locked in closets. This is where Georgia molested one of the sisters.
No.
Yep.
No.
Yep. One of these 2 sisters was also molested by her adoptive father. She ran away and found herself back in Georgia's care. She did eventually find herself in a loving home and was violent towards her new brother. And it's one of those things where it's like, when you're going through a lot of this and you're getting involved in physical abuse, it's kind of like, okay, they're acting out. Mm-hmm. Like, it makes sense. The other sister was taken to a bathroom and was sexually assaulted with a wooden spoon.
That's yucky.
It's fucking disgusting. Another survivor said that Georgia would take her to her room and was told to sit on Georgia's lap. Now, keep in mind, you know how we mentioned in the beginning that Georgia came across as masculine?
Yep.
Okay, so at this time, Georgia was channeling her inner feminine. Okay. Which isn't a bad thing, but because her room was filled with like frilly stuff all over the place, a lot of the survivors, that became a trigger for them.
Oh.
So like, what was
That's
it?
Interesting.
Like the 80s, 90s? Is that when it was where, like frilly, flowery, like that was the style?
Something like that.
Yeah, so needless to say, like when floral stuff and frilly pink stuff was in style, it was a trigger for a lot of these survivors. Like,
do not swallow it.
Alexa's dog is chewing on a toy and it's fabric. Okay. So at this time in her life, so floral rooms just became a massive trigger. The girls weren't the only ones being abused. Mm-hmm. The boys were abused by male workers. One boy was placed in many different homes, and in one, the other children told him to stay away from the handyman who lived in the basement. Sound familiar?
That sounds familiar.
Like the scumbag he is, the handyman got a hold of the boy and violently molested him. Yeah, years later, the boy was adopted into a good home and had to have surgery to correct the injuries that were done.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, like, I do want to point out that, like, in a lot of my research, names were mentioned. But for me, I feel like they're speaking out. Yes, you can find their name if you want to do your own research online. But there's a certain level of anonymity where it's just like, okay, you're speaking out, you're sharing what trauma happened. We're going to leave it at that. Yeah. Years later, the boy was He tried to rebuild his life and struggled. And despite getting married twice and having kids, struggled despite getting married and having kids. Mm-hmm. When he finally found his person, basically got divorced, finally found his person, he died within a couple years of cancer.
No.
Yeah. So it's just
damn
bad.
it.
Yeah. Physical damage like cigarette burns, scalding, and being threatened with drowning was not unheard of between many survivors. Mm-hmm. They'd often have their heads held underwater as a way to scare them. Mm-hmm. Not all of the abuse happened under one roof. Mm-hmm. Georgia would place some children in foster homes where they'd be abused as well. Mm-hmm. And going back to the babies that get adopted out, they'd oftentimes arrive at their adoptive parents' house being super dehydrated and feverish. Mm-hmm. And some of them died within days. Hi, Luke. Some of them died within days, and that's when a new baby would be brought in. This woman is fucking awful.
She's a psycho.
Yeah.
She is definitely just money hungry.
Yeah.
Are they playing and you don't like it?
Okay. So, unsurprisingly, due to abuse, neglect, and illness, around 500 children died under Georgia's care. She had the children buried in a 14 by 13 area at the Elmore Cemetery, and there's 19 graves there.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. 14 by 13 plot. That's a mass grave. That is nothing more than a mass grave.
I'm doing it for the kids. Like, I'm literally bringing to light how terrible of a person she was.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
That sucks. That sucks a lot.
Yeah. So, remember how in the book, Rill was brought to a hotel where her adoptive father picked her up?
Yes.
This was a real thing.
Yep.
So, in the 1940s, once every 3 weeks, 2 employees would take 4 to 6 babies with them to California or New York to adopt the babies out. Mm-hmm. So, to clarify, they traveled separately. One would leave at 3 a.m. for their flight and the other at 5. They'd check into a hotel and meet with the new parents. And of course, parents were told that the adoption fee they were paying went towards actual expenses like transportation, as the home, quote, didn't make a profit. Both women were told by Georgia not to say a word about these trips at all. And according to a Good Housekeeping article dated March 19th, 1991, she'd send multiple babies out for adoption but only claim one of them, and that's how she was able to pocket the extra money. She would also make up records to show babies were adopted out to Tennessee families, not out-of-state families, which would enable her to pocket even more. Mm-hmm. And Georgia was not only a con artist, but she was a hypocrite. She told adoptive parents that she'd find babies for them that would suit their needs, aka, we're Jewish and we want a Jewish baby. She didn't care and would give them a random baby. And what makes her a hypocrite is the fact that she'd speak out about flaws with other orphanages who did the exact same thing as she did. Mm-hmm. And with her name getting out there, it also meant trouble was on the horizon, thank God.
We can only hope. Mm-hmm. Not soon enough, though, obviously. Son of a bitch.
By the 1940s, Georgia's empire was on the brink of destruction.
Good.
The Child Welfare League dropped the orphanage's membership in 1941, citing 3 things that led to its decision. Mm-hmm. The first was its failure to thoroughly investigate homes of prospective adoptive parents. The second was that the investigations that were done were facilitated by staff who did not have professional training or the education required to adequately do their jobs. The third was the advertising of children for adoption. All of this came to fruition after Georgia refused to respond to repeated warnings from the league's executive director, telling her she needed to stop her adoptive advertisements. So if she just listened, this could have gone even farther. So maybe it's a good thing she did listen.
Maybe it's a good thing she's a dummy.
Yep. The loss of membership prompted a decent judge, Judge Samuel Bates, to write a 7-page letter to the Tennessee Commissioner of Public Welfare, requesting for a formal and unbiased investigation of the orphanage. This judge stated that the orphanage failed to follow advice provided by medical advisors on health and sanitation, which resulted in the death of, obviously, many children. Additionally, it stated that Georgia and those who worked for her used unfair tactics such as blackmail in the political realm. The fact that it was also mentioned that there were too many complaints to list in detail in a 7-page letter was alarming. And despite all of this, Tennessee Governor Jim McCord refused to do an investigation in fear of participating in anything, quote, which might lead to undue publicity with the legislative session, end quote.
Oh, interesting. Fascinating. Oh.
I'm having another drink.
That's a good choice. I'm getting doggy kisses, so I'm okay right now. But like,
it makes you so angry that, like, in this day and age, if something had happened, it would have been like, you have to remember the time that we were in.
Oh yeah, nothing was fast in the early 1900s. Mm-hmm. Nothing was done quickly. Nothing is done quickly now, but yeah, thankfully it's quicker than it was.
Yeah. It was later revealed that there was an internal attempt in the governor's office to keep information from the public about black market adoptions. No shit. Later on in 1950, Governor Gordon Browning did bring forth some of Georgia's shady business. He held a press conference to highlight her financial crimes, specifically of her pocketing money from adoptions. We're going to take another drink because it's needed for this next sentence.
Fuck.
Within days of this press conference, on September 15th, 1950, Georgia passed away from uterine cancer.
Hallelujah!
She had been bedridden for quite some time before this and was in a coma in the days before her death. So needless to say, legally, she has never been held accountable for what she's done.
Nope.
At least one adoptee attended her open casket funeral to validate that she was truly dead and that she hadn't faked it to get away. So
that's pretty funny.
Yeah. So like
that one adoptee is very brave.
So for me, I'm just like, never held accountable. What the fuck? And it's just getting worse. Okay. Following Governor Browning's press conference, the orphanage was obviously shut down.
Right.
However, full knowledge of what was done behind its doors wouldn't be known for years.
Mm-hmm.
In an effort to know what happened, an attorney named Robert Taylor was appointed to investigate with some terms. He was prohibited from viewing court records of judges who had enabled Georgia's scam, and he couldn't view her business or private records. A year later, in 1951, a bill was introduced to the state legislature to prompt a full-scale investigation and those connected to it. Unfortunately, it died due to those still tied to Crump. Sorry. To those still tied to Crump. Hi, Booth.
Was that intentional? Well done. Oh, well done. That's, wow.
You make a strong drink. What can I say?
They're delicious.
Oh my god.
Anyway, Crump, moving on.
I'm gonna redeem myself. No, I'm not. Unfortunately, it died due to those still tied to Crump.
Yep, that one.
It was not intentional at all.
This might be the first one I actually have to go and listen to just to hear that again. That was great.
We're not a political podcast. We're not a political podcast.
No. We do this to get away from the politics. Let's be very real.
Yes, we do it to get away from the bullshit. That was not intentional. Okay.
Mommy's okay, Coda.
I'm okay.
Oh, Luke.
People were still around who wanted to protect their own reputations and to preserve their own adoptions. A proposal for an investigation on a federal level was also attempted, but failed as well due to those who had financially benefited from Georgia's operation. And I do want to point out that Governor Browning wasn't 100% on the straight and narrow. He had made it clear to Attorney Taylor that he didn't want an indictment or prosecution. He simply wanted, quote, baby sellers in Memphis out of operation. Yeah, like that's gonna stop the problem.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It said that many commissioners of public welfare suspected or had actual knowledge of what had been going on due to many filed complaints but had failed to take action. A lawsuit had been filed against Georgia's estate for the purpose of money recovery, but that was handled in a settlement with the executrix. And I'm assuming that was Anne, but nothing was set aside for the victims of the state.
Of course not.
From the state. So, of course, victims wouldn't see jack shit.
Yep. Uh-huh.
So, frustratingly, after the 1950 press conference, birth families were coming forward. They wanted help in finding their children. They were not listened to as it was viewed that the children were better off where they were placed, out of poverty, despite the circumstances of their adoption. To make matters worse, legislators quickly worked to pass the sealing of records, such as the Public Acts of 1951, which made confidential all records, quote, involving an adoption or attempted adoption of a person, end quote. This applied to adoptions that took place less than a week before Georgia's crime were revealed. Like, just Oh, bad. Arguably, unlike today's news sources, newspapers following her death spoke highly of her and didn't seem to recognize all the harm that she'd done.
Of course they did.
On her death certificate, she was listed as single, had $80,000 left of her fortune. Hi, dogs.
Luke is telling them to stop fighting.
That didn't go towards any sort of organization.
Well, of course
nothing. So in today's money, that's over $1 million.
That's impressive.
And Anne got half, and the rest went among family members.
Interesting.
So I guess her goal of making sure Anne was comfortable was accomplished.
Yup.
Judge Kelly was never held accountable either. She announced her retirement soon after the investigation began and passed away in 1955.
Shit.
Yep. None of Georgia's staff members were ever held accountable. Many weren't even outed for what they'd done until it was too late, several decades later. In one of the most frustrating moves, in 1951, legislation passed an act that made all adoption and attempted adoption records sealed. So upon Georgia's... Hi, Luke.
Luke, they're fine.
Upon Georgia's passing, 22 children were still in the home, and only 2 of them were reunited with their birth parents. Perhaps one of the few positive things to come of all of this was Tennessee strengthened its adoption laws. Thorough investigations into adopting parents and more rights to birth parents came out of this, and other states followed that example. There is still her legacy of making closed adoptions a thing in the eyes of the law. In 1994, adoptees from Tennessee began pressuring the legislature to change this. They wanted to see their records. Can't blame them. A coalition worked on doing exactly this. They wanted to see Georgia's records regarding the 5,000 victims. The law passed in July of 1995 called the 1995 Public Acts Chapter 532 and at first only opened records for Georgia's direct victims. A year later, indirect victims, so those affected after her death, gained access. 17 states today have laws enforcing sealed adoptions or restricted access to records today. This includes simple medical history of parents, and unfortunately for many families, this passed far too late due to deaths, but it did provide closure to many where reuniting a family became possible.
Wow.
And of course, groups protesting this law because they thought that open adoptions would decrease adoptions altogether and increase abortions. And to that, as someone who was adopted, I say fuck you.
Fair enough. I support that choice.
So since 1995, from what I could find, Tennessee has done nothing to help the victims of Georgia Tann, including just simply acknowledging them. Sadly, this practice is still going on today in the world. In 2015, donations created a memorial at the Elmore Cemetery to honor the children and babies buried. It reads, quote, "In memory of the 19 children who finally rest here, unmarked, if not unknown, and all the hundreds who died under the cold, hard hand of the Tennessee Children's Home Society, their final resting place unknown, for their final peace, a blessing." And on a personal note, sources did list names, but I'm choosing to keep that anonymous for this podcast. I don't know if they'll ever hear this, but I'd like to thank everyone who has spoken up and shared their trauma, as it allows platforms like us to get information out there that the government neglected to do 75 years ago, and they deserve to have their stories told.
Wow. Well done. I got to give you a big hand for that one, because that's a lot. That was a lot. Oh.
I told you there was a lot. So I hope that this definitely creates awareness to this home. And I, in a way, I really hate the fact that I highlighted Georgia Tann and not the victims and the survivors. But at the same time, we deserve to know what she did wrong. And honestly, have her reputation smeared in the history.
Please and thank you.
Yeah. Like, it needs to happen.
Nobody should look up to her. Nobody should try and do what she did. Nobody should praise her for what she did.
No.
I really, really hope not.
Yeah.
Because, no.
And, like, Lisa Wingate, the author of this month's book, did so much research.
So
and, like, massive props to her, because I didn't write a book about this.
No, but you almost did.
The work that she put into this was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I commend her for this. But yeah, that's the Tennessee Children's Home Society.
Oh, that's
Fucked
Tennessee
up.
Children's Home Society and Georgia Tann and all the other corrupt people that were a part of it way back when.
Like, I didn't realize it was such a massive operation.
Nobody knew, I feel.
Yeah.
Like you... Okay. On a lighter note, next month's book.
Yes, October,
we have The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. I got this little synopsis off of Goodreads. All right, so it starts off with a female apothecary secretly dispenses poisons to liberate women from the men who have wronged them, setting 3 lives across centuries on a dangerous collision course. So, rule number 1, the poison must never be used to harm another woman. Rule number 2, the names of the murderer and her victim must be recorded in the apothecary's register. One cold February evening in 1791, at the back of a dark London alley in a hidden apothecary shop, Nella awaits her newest customer. Once a respected healer, Nella now uses her knowledge for a darker purpose, selling well-disguised poisons to desperate women who would kill to be free of the men in their lives. But when her new patron turns out to be a precocious 12-year-old named Eliza Fanning, an unexpected friendship sets in motion a string of events that jeopardizes Nella's world and threatens to expose the many women whose names are written in her register. In present-day London, aspiring historian Caroline Parswell spends her 10th wedding anniversary alone, reeling from the discovery of her husband's infidelity. When she finds an old apothecary vial near the River Thames, she can't resist... Is it Thames or Thames?
How is it spelled?
Thames in London. Is it Thames?
Fuck it, I don't know.
Whatever. I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. She can't resist investigating, only to realize she's found a link to the unsolved apothecary murders that haunted London over 2 centuries ago. As she deepens her search, Caroline's life collides with Nella's and Eliza's in a stunning twist of fate, and not everyone will survive. So, little brief synopsis. Anna has not read this book yet.
No.
So this is her first... Is this your first, introduction to this book, or have you read anything about it yet?
So I read the description for one of the next fitnessing classes, but to be quite honest with you, when I read those, I go into autopilot mode to make sure that I don't stumble too much, so I don't actually process what I'm reading.
That's fair. So what's your first impression from me reading this?
Oh my god.
Are we speechless?
Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna. Yeah,
This was good. This one is good. I do like this one too. This was another solid book that I'm I read it twice because of course I originally read it, and then when we decided to make this one of our months, I reread it.
Yeah, and actually I have been searching our local quote unquote city type area. Couldn't find it anywhere, but one of our local libraries has it, so I'm gonna borrow it from there.
There you go.
And I'm just watch this be one of the most underrated books that I don't know, just finding it.
Dude, right?
Yeah, so I'm very excited about it for sure.
So Anna and I are also already all scheduled out for books until March at this point.
Yep.
So we were thinking about doing a fun little game where I found it on the gram, I don't know, a month or two ago at this point.
I think we might have mentioned this last class,
Class, you have classes. We have a podcast.
Yes, last podcast. And our list is together for that. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that, but I like it.
Okay.
I like it. Okay.
So anyway, I distracted you. So
that's okay.
What are we planning on doing to pick this book for next year?
So it's very similar to beer pong, but we'll play. But it's not a 1v1. It's just we're just gonna start taking shots at the cups, and whatever one it lands in, that's not the book we're going to do.
Yep.
And then the last one standing is the book that we are going to read. So right now we have Deja Dead by Kathy Reichs, The Book of Cold Cases, The Change, The Rose Code, That's Not My Name, The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, The Women by Kristen Hanna, What Wild Women Do by Karma Brown, The Last Caretaker by Jessica Strausser, Those Empty Eyes by Charlie Donnelly. Ooh.
Do you know what that first one is?
No.
That's the book that Bones, the TV show, is based off of.
Ooh. I almost want that one now.
I have the book.
Okay. I'll get there then. I'm not to the point where I'm ready to start reading it.
Yeah,
yet,
we're very far out.
I was about to say, I still have to read the March books right now.
I just have to read the October book.
I was going to say, the March books are the whole series. I know, you're very nice that you pick books I've already read, because once September hits, I'm like invisible until June again. Sorry.
You're good.
Teacher life.
Yep.
But
yeah,
that's our episode.
That's our plan.
For this month.
For that month where we do the Pong, we'll probably record something and then upload it to YouTube, and then give us that month to read the book. So that won't be done until early next year.
I was about to say, I'm thinking of doing it even sooner, so that, dude, do you forget that like March is when track starts?
Oh yeah.
I don't have time. So if I can get a hold on it like more sooner than later, that'd be great.
So we're going to be channeling our inner 20-year-old sooner rather than later to pick a book for next year.
Yes,
and then listeners, you will have that spoiler so you can get caught up sooner. And as your husband said, we're going to get wasted.
Probably.
I mean,
I'm not making this in it, obviously. So we're not having one full thing of these, because that would be bad.
No. But no, this was a good one. This was a bit intense, but had to be done. So good job.
Well done.
On to the next. So until next time, bye-bye.
Toodles.